feel like Kobe in the fourth quarter.
This is the Dane Moore NBA podcast. We are brought to you by Prize Picks. Coming to you Saturday morning. It's February 21st, and we're doing a pod on a Saturday because the Wolves played their first game last night in 9 days. I'm glad we're doing a pod because Friday night's game against Dallas was the Wolves' first game with the roster they're going to have for the rest of the season. Like, this is the group, barring maybe adding a buyout guy. So that was the kind of one thing that came to my mind going into this game was, okay, Ayo Dosunmu's here. Terrence Shannon Jr. is back from injury. Mike Conley's back from sabbatical. Johan Berenger looking big and like put on the freshman 15. Is he ready to play? I was really curious about the rotation going into last night and just like what this team was going to feel like in the post All-Star break version of itself. We got some initial answers on that. We also got a huge clutch time performance from Anthony Edwards, fresh off of his All-Star game MVP. I want to dive into some clutch stuff on Ant because I don't feel like we've really dug into that too much. He was also asked about his comments about coming home to Atlanta to Jalen Johnson. We can play that clip, talk about that a little. Rudy got a flagrant. He's suspended for the next game. I got a few other things down, but I am joined by Kyle Teige, who is awake bright and early on the West Coast on a Saturday morning. What's up, man? Thanks for doing it.
So glad to be back. Like, I too wanted a sabbatical, like Minnesota Mike, for a week. And then as soon as I've said this before, but like you look forward to the weekend and the weekend comes, you're like, God, I'm bored as hell. I needed a break from the Wolves, and then I got a break, and I realized I was watching a lot of like downhill skiing. And then it was a week dominated by some of the worst conversations on NBA Twitter involving tanking and planting trees and guys going home. And I don't know, just, it's nice to have the basketball back. It's nice to have chaotic Rudy Gobert, clutch Ant, weird rotations, Chris Finch stuff. So we are so back, and now it starts, right? Like now I think it's safe, if you weren't looking at the standings every morning, to start standing hunting a little bit. Like Wolves, we'll talk about last night's game, get a win, not pretty. But then you got to turn on the Laker game, right? Then you got to kind of turn on the Nuggets game and see what's going on, because now these teams are fighting for positioning in the Western Conference standings as this final lap of the race goes on. So I thought last night was pretty fun for the most part, and then it wasn't fun, but it ended with Ant in the clutch again, 40-point game. I think him and Luka each have 8 of them this season, and then the next closest guy's like 5. But it's all the stuff we kind of talked about in the summer, right? After they got bounced in 5 games of like getting to the mid-range, getting a shot, getting a go-to spot. He put all of that on display last night, and I thought it was pretty interesting.
Yeah, one other thing I want to talk about at the end of the episode, this listeners don't, is just kind of, is this Wolves team this season better than last season's Wolves team? Finch had an interesting answer about that. We'll play that clip later. But I bring it up now because, spoiler alert, like I think my answer to that question is going to be yes, this season's team is better. Mm-hmm. And not only because of Ant's clutch time play, but a lot of my rationale for like just saying I think this team is better than last year, even despite losing Nickeil Alexander-Walker, is just what Ant is now versus what he was a season ago. And we're constantly reminded by Ant every year that like something is added to his game, and this year is a cool manifestation of that. Whereas last year was the 3-ball, right? Leads the league in 3-point makes, all that sort of stuff. And this year it's the mid range, but it's not just the mid range. It's like it's what the mid range unlocks for him, mm-hmm. and that really shows up in clutch time. And it's just, we've seen many clutch time games this season, but I was just thinking, as you checked into the game last night with like 7 minutes to go in the fourth, I was like, man, he is really in control. Like that was the word that kept coming to my mind, because, I'm just like rolling back in my brain 3-4 years ago to, Ant made some cool shots in clutch time and always like had the athletic pop, had the ability to hit tough shots, but it didn't feel like it was in control all the time. And we could talk a little bit about the numbers and stuff like that, but the feeling of control to me is or being under control or in control of clutch time is what just kind of, it's what stands out to me most about his clutch time stuff. It's what stands out to me most about what this team can now do at the end of games. That, I mean, we are not far removed from this team being like, 3 minutes left in the game, they're up by 8. Ants kind of extinguished a lot of that fear. It's not perfect, and they don't win every clutch time game just because Anthony Edwards is on the team. We've seen in the Pelicans game, he didn't hit shots at the end of that game, and they lost it a couple weeks ago. But I love the control that Ant seems to have at the end of games, and that really showed up to me last night. 6 of 8 from the field in the fourth quarter, and just again took over under control.
Yeah, last year compared to this year, it wasn't that he didn't have a go-to shot. He just didn't know where to have it, right? He's like, okay, I do want to get to the mid-range last season, but it was kind of sprayed all over the half-court shot chart. He did take 30 shots last night, so there's a lot of circle dots on the play-by-play. But if you kind of notice the pattern of where he's getting to, he really loves those kind of, if he gets a guy down to one of the elbows and can get him, a pump fake or whatever, like, I just expect it to go in now. Like, he had it twice last night, one going each way, first half, second half, where it's like, okay, backs a guy down. He knows how to use his strength. That is something we talk about, or we don't talk about enough. Like, his athleticism, we think, is like flying through the air and dunking, all this stuff, but he's also built more like a running back than he is, like a skinny shooting guard. So I think the fact that he's put it all together, he's learned from past mistakes. He's had, I think, the coaching, which I know, right, to kind of force him to start to develop those spots and those shots. Last night, it just looked like a guy, despite, again, need to mention that the Mavericks were playing without a ton of dudes, and it was a very shorthanded team. But Ant looked very calm in the fourth quarter because he knew exactly where he wanted to go. He always wants to take those shots, right? I always bring up the Philadelphia one where he was like double teamed and we were at Treasure Island. That was a bad shot. Or the one against the Rockets in front of the bench. Like, that was a bad shot. He can make those. But when he can start getting good shots and make those, that's when this team levels up. And I do think, spoiler alert, that's why I think they're a better team than they were last year. Plus the Baron J edition, which we should talk about.
Yeah, we'll get to that too. I just rewatched his 8 shots from the fourth quarter last night. Just want to kind of rip through them quickly, just because I think it's indicative of, or representative of, what the evolution is of his clutch time game. It was so often at the end of games in previous seasons, just getting to the step back 3, and you get hit those, and those are, you land that's a haymaker, right? But he's got a lot of jabs, and now he has a lot of jabs, and I think that showed up last night. His first shot, once he checks into the game, 7 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, he hits a step back 3, kind of in isolation. PJ Washington's guarding him, which I think sets up his next possession when he has the ball. It's an ISO attack, and you can see Washington is up on him a little bit more, I think, because he hit that step back 3 possession or two before that. That was the ISO attack, and then it's the timeout, and he points at everybody with the fingers there on Dallas. The third one was his third shot was a miss, but it was clean. It was a DHO with Julius on the far left corner, and it was a clean 3-point look. Ant missed it. The next one was one of those like peel screens from Dante, which I really, really like that action where Dante like comes up kind of as like a fake screener and then peels off it to kind of, an extended pop for the 3. And that's a nice action, right? You got the ball in Ant's hands and you got an elite 3-point movement shooter coming off of that. But what Ant does a really good job of, or what I think he's learned, is he just attacks where Dante was coming from, right? Because that peel is pulling not only that other defender, but kind of the whole defense to be like, okay, here goes Dante going east, coming from the west, and Ant just attacks west. You're going to get yourself in a situation there where there's one defender, and I think those are the things, is he's finding spots to attack actions. That's a designed action there. Even the DHO is, where it's just tougher to load up on him, or like even the DHO, you can't just put 2 on Ant if it's in Julius's hands there, right? Like it's all these situations that are more advantageous for Ant. Then kind of at the end, it was clear out, right? Isolation. The next one was cleared out on the left side. He attacks PJ Washington, gets to the floater, 11-footer there. And then the rest of the game was just like go for low, right? And he attacks from there, gets to the elbow, like you said. That was his next one. Hits that pull up over Najee Marshall. Then it's kind of a heat check 3. The next possession down, the game was kind of in hand. It was like 50 seconds left. They're up by 11. And then he ended the game with a corner 3 on an inbound play there. And that's just really good diversity, right? You know, like there's just a lot of stuff there, and there's a lot of just good basketball things involved in there, not just great shot making by Ant. And I think that's the difference. Is it doesn't, him being effective in clutch time now does not require him to be Herculean, you know, and making the insane shots like he did against Philly at the end of that game last year. It's just a much better approach, not just from him, but I think like an understanding of the group, right? We've heard the players talk about this, like, you know, the first 3.5 quarters of the game, we're playing this way. And now we're comfortable with kind of switching into really, really playing through Ant the last 5-6 minutes of the game. That's just sinking into this team, individually with Ant, collectively as a group. And I think Finch has a pretty good feel of how to be pulling those strings now.
Just a quick clarifying comment. Not a heat check 3. A guy who looked up in the northwest corner of Target Center and saw he had 37 and wanted 40 because I think he had saw Cade drop 40 at Madison Square Garden the night before. But interesting because this is all very small sample size and dissecting one game, but 80% of his shots in the first quarter were 3-point attempts. I think he went scoreless in the first 5 minutes of that first quarter. And then in the fourth quarter, when it's winning time, before those 2 threes that Dante was literally trying to get him the ball so he could hit 40, he took 4 of his 6 shots from inside the paint, or like you said, kind of on that elbow. Mm-hmm. So he knows when it's winning time now where his shots are. It's not just tween, step back 3, which he can hit. Again, back to like he can hit impossible shots, but it's when he starts taking the smarter shots that it really is kind of a nightmare for the opponent. So last night it was kind of on full display. They needed it, unfortunately, in a game where maybe we shouldn't be talking about all the clutch stuff because we probably should have blown them out. But I will just say this too to kind of put it all together. You mentioned Finch. We mentioned Ant taking All-Star game seriously this past weekend when he wins MVP. I'm kind of over like the discussion of it. I just do find it interesting. I was talking to someone who was with him all weekend in LA. And as soon as he won MVP, like you could see in the All-Star game, like he was pretty smitten by it. Like you can still see a little bit of Ant. His poker face isn't always there where it's like, that was cool. Like I played hard and I won it. And someone who was around him all weekend was like, he couldn't wait to get back in the tunnel and tell Finch. And you saw the video of that when he calls Finchy. And that's happened before, like when he won an Olympic gold medal. Couldn't wait to get on the horn and call Finchy. So last night, post game in the locker room, you heard this, but also post game. Want me to play it? Well, I was going to say post game, he said it on ESPN to the broadcast, but also in the locker room. But he summarized that, again, what you might read on the internet on multiple occasions is not really what's going on in real life.
He did talk about it in his post game interview on the floor. I asked him about it after the game as well, just about his. Not the All-Star game, but just his sort of clutch time improvement. Getting your career, you know, the numbers weren't as good at that time. Like, what do you think has made you a better clutch player?
I told her, I was just doing an interview out there on the floor, and I was just like, I think Finchy is a big part of my success because the last couple of years he was telling me, like, I need a go-to shot. I need spots to be able to get to where I'm comfortable. So I got to work on that instead of trying to like work on all these moves to a shot. Like work on getting to this spot and rising up over whoever it is. And he's been preaching that to me, man, for the last 2 years. So yeah, he's a big part of that.
Yeah, he was talking. I asked him about it too, and he was talking about how earlier in your career was the 3 a lot. Yeah. That you were taking at the end there. And now you can kind of get it at any level. What does that open up when the defense doesn't know what shot you're going to take?
I think my tray ball opens up a lot for me offensively because, like, I think teams really don't want me to shoot the step back going left. So, like, they be kind of, like, pressed up and just – they kind of let me go by them, honestly. It's like it's starting to feel like they just let me go to the rim. So, just trying to, pick my spots, when to shoot the 3, when to get to the pull up, when to get to the rim, when to kick it out, just reading the game. Seems like
I thought that was what stood out to me when I was sitting there listening to him answer that question. I'm going back in my head of 4 years ago, whatever, asking him about shot selection and stuff like that at the end of games. And I just thinking in the moment, I'm like, man, he gets this like just way more. Like that's a smart answer, you know.
The part about them pressing up on me. I mean, this is whether it be how you watch Steph Curry get defended or at your local gym against a guy who's hot from three. It's like press up on him and make him drive. The problem is it's Anthony Edwards, and he can kill you at the rim, which he was doing the first game of his rookie season. But also now he can get to the mid-range. And that's the third component of a three-level scorer that now that he's developed that, now that he has the spots, again, not to interrupt you, but that's where it's like, oh, 3 levels. If I let him get to 15 feet, that's going to kill me too. And if I let him get to the rim, that's going to kill us. So kind of pick your poison.
Yeah, it's the spots thing. I mean, and we've been talking about that too for the past couple of years of like what is missing in Ant's game. And that was the way we put it, was like, it's not that he can't make shots from everywhere, but what are his spots? What are the repeatable ones? What are the ones you can go to in a pinch, right? And a lot of that is the work he put in the offseason on the mid-range. Like your spots do, if you want to take a shot not guarded by multiple players, it does, and you're that star caliber player, it does need to come from the mid-range. And I think, I mean, the numbers are just elite in clutch time, specifically from 2-point range. I mean, in general, clutch time shooting numbers are very depressed, right? Like that's the time where it's the best at the end of games, the team's playing the best defense, it devolves, and offense is less efficient just across the board. But Ant is shooting 75% from 2-point range in clutch time this season. Like that's elite. And we know a lot of those are mid-range shots. They're not just all layups. Like, and honestly, 33 for 44 from like layups or around the basket would be pretty solid. Like that's good to just shoot at the rim. I mean, he has been killer from 2-point range at the end of games. And you also couple that in with these 11 for 30 from 3, that's 37%. That's not like elite in the grander scheme of things, right? He shoots 40% from 3 overall, but still shooting a lot of threes at a 37% clip at the end of games when the opponent kind of knows you're going to be taking those. Like, it's just impressive. It's really high level. And I was looking it up. Like, there's 38 players who have played more clutch time minutes than Ant this season. Like the Wolves just haven't had a ton of clutch time. But at the same time, only 2 players have taken more shots than him. Does that make sense? Tyrese Maxey and Cade Cunningham. And Tyrese Maxey from 3-point range is shooting 29% from 3, 8 of 28. Cade Cunningham is shooting 7% from 3 in clutch time, 1 for 15. When you're that type of player, as you know, similar archetypes of Maxey, Cade, and Ant, I think that's a good representation that when defenses are loaded up on you, it's hard to be making shots at the end of the game at a really high clip. And Ant is doing it again from all levels. I just thought that stood out to me. Not just that the numbers are good, but directly compared to the other players who are shooting as much as he does at that time. Like the efficiency numbers are better than them. I mean, as good as anybody in the league, and what a growth that is, again, from 3-4 years ago, just from a statistical standpoint.
Just a little cold water on what is a really good first segment, and obviously crazy statistics. I just saw this from Alan Horton, by the way. Most 40-point games, regular season and postseason combined, under 25 years old. Ant has 32 of them now, just past Kevin Durant, 31. Michael Jordan had 55. So still a ways to go. But to kind of put a bow on it, if you do want to nitpick the box score last night, 38 minutes, 40 points, 30 field goal attempts, 1 assist. And having those spots was a necessity for him come playoff time, because the chessboard, it becomes it goes from checkers, becomes chess. but teams will now force him to once again become a playmaker. You know, like no one really cares on a cold Friday night in Minnesota about where his spots are if you're the opponent, but they will come April and May. And he'll have to balance that out again. Not saying anything pessimistic. It's just it levels up again of like, okay, now you have your spots, but you know, Denver knows where those spots are. Houston knows where those spots are. OKC knows where those spots are. Now, what do you do out of those situations where there's two guys on you again, and they know you're shooting an absurd 78% from two, but they want to see Jaden beat them. You know, they want to see Julius beat them. They want to see Rudy beat them. So still a ways to go, I think, in the long term, but this is the foundation of if he can build this, and again, 3-level scorer, it opens up so much for him. As he said, you press me up on the 3, I'm going to go by you. If you give me a step, I'm going to hit it. Now it's how does he get back to that 4, 5, 6 assists a game come playoff time?
Today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks. And while we're talking about Ant's clutch time play this season, let's take a peek at Ant's odds for winning Clutch Time Player of the Year over at Prize Picks. He is currently the favorite to win the Clutch Player of the Year award, and the odds say it's really just a competition between Ant and Tyrese Maxey for the award. Ant has about even odds on that right now. If you bet $10, you win 20 if Ant wins the award. Naz Reid is also the current favorite at Prize Picks to win Sixth Man of the Year, though the race is a little bit tighter according to the odds between Naz and Keldon Johnson is next up there on the odds for Sixth Man of the Year. I think it's fun that these are things that you can now look up over at Prize Picks. In addition to making lineups over on the teams tab, they have these awards. You have the ability to pick against the spread amongst many other things. And even in the state of Minnesota, you know the deal. There's always something going on over at Prize Picks. If you don't have a Prize Picks account, all you have to do is put in the promo code Dane when you sign up. You'll receive $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. That's prizepicks.com or the Prize Picks app using promo code Dane. Let's talk a little bit about the Atlanta comments. He responded to that. Should I play that clip first, or do you just want to like? Okay.
24 hours ago when I said this, I was like, "Should we talk about this?" Like that doesn't really. It was dumb. It was a dumb week of content, but I think we should talk about it.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, he was asked about it, you know, and if you weren't paying attention to the NBA last week over All-Star Weekend, like I wasn't, you might have missed that camera picked up Ant saying to Jalen Johnson, who plays for the Atlanta Hawks, like, I can't wait to get home. And that was taken as I can't wait to come play for Atlanta. At some point last night was our first chance to ask him about that. John Krasinski from The Athletic asked Ant about that. And this was Ant's response.
Video of you and Jalen Johnson talking, and like there was fans who thought you said, I can't wait to come home.
Yeah.
And people thought that meant that you were talking about going to Atlanta.
Yeah.
Again, what is that? Can you clear anything up about?
I mean, I don't think it's nothing to clear up. Yeah. It wasn't too much, just a conversation. I've been knowing Jalen Johnson for a long time. That's my dog. We were just having a conversation. It's really nothing to clear up. I'm happy where I'm at.
What'd you make of that?
I make nothing of the whole conversation right now. I don't think it was probably how the PR department would have preferred him to handle that. Yeah. But again, I think you and I, to our credit, for one time, like we've been talking about this for years, more than kind of anyone. Like just, you know, the burden that comes with having a top 5, top 7, top 10 guys, like as soon as they don't win games or they kind of slide, then the piranhas come out of like OKC is building up all these draft assets and San Antonio is having all these draft, like to come get them. That's what happens. You know, it's even kind of absurdly happened to the Lakers. If you're logged in on that side of the coast of if the Lakers don't build around Luka right, like does he go back to Dallas? This is just what happens when you have a superstar guy. The comments in general, I think Ant loves just going home and chilling. And I don't know if he means to his crib in Minnesota or back to Atlanta, but because he had just won the MVP and kind of stamped himself as like, I'm that guy again, everyone wants to get him. So I don't know. We've talked about that if this organization doesn't continue to put the right pieces around him, that at some point this might be a real conversation. I don't think it's a real conversation for now, but I also, that's why I sometimes circle back on the hamster wheel of like, he really likes his guys in Jaden and Naz. And you might not like Chris Finch, but post-game, he said he's the hardest coach he's ever had, and that relationship is important. So I think you have to continue to do right.
You're talking to listeners.
Yeah, not you. I think
I hate him.
I think you have to continue to, you can't win a title without one of those guys. Big picture. You have to have one of those guys to win a title. But when you don't win games, that's when you start to have the rumors and the circulation. It happened at the trade deadline with Giannis. So I didn't make anything of it in the moment. I didn't make anything of it long term. It's complete bullshit that he doesn't know what's going on or that he's not online, because his team is very online. I don't believe any athlete isn't aware of what's going on social media, but I think it was worth addressing. I don't think if you're an Atlanta fan or a resident of the ATL, like, I think you could be like, oh my God, he didn't say no. So it breathes life into that rumor. But as long as the Minnesota Timberwolves continue to invest in the roster, I think, and put the right pieces around him and give him a chance to win, I think that's their best chance of keeping him long-term. And that's all that you can really do.
Yeah. Like you said, we've talked about this before. The thing I've always, brought up is it's extremely common for a superstar player of Ant's caliber to, in their late 20s, once that first big contract is done, to move on, that the exceptions are the Kobe Bryants and the Dirk Nowitzkis and the Steph Currys. There's a lot more Kevin Durant or like Blake Griffin moved at that time. I mean, it's a long list of guys do their first 8-9 years or whatever in one spot, and then they have that opportunity or the option to not sign that next contract with that team, or sign that next contract and move on, So it just hyper logically, right? Like, of course it's a possibility that at some point in his late 20s that Anthony Edwards moves, as is the case for Cade Cunningham, whatever, all these and all the other star players in the league. And there's nothing we can do about it. These are just the first breadcrumbs. There's going to be more stuff like that, because this is the stuff that the piranhas dig their teeth into, maybe prematurely, but not illogically. It is Minnesota. It's not one of the major places or the major big cities. So I think this is, obviously going to be a conversation over the next 3, 4, whatever years. But like, we know Ant to some extent. We know the people around him in the organization and stuff, and never has that like been brought up to me, at least, of like with like real concern. I don't know, maybe that's like, don't look in the future. Like, let's not even think about it. But I do think he's happy with where he's at right now. They've been an extremely competitive team for like the entirety of his 20s thus far. And this is just a battle that comes if you're Tim Conley, if you're, Matt Caldwell or the owners. It's a battle, and it's a pressure on all of them in the front office to keep putting together teams that, when that option begins to intrigue Ant at all, you have a case for keeping him. And thus far, I don't think they've done anything on the Wolves side, on the Minnesota side, to alienate that. But this is we call it the soap opera stuff and kind of like roll our eyes at it, but it's part of the business. It's part of the game too. I do think it's pretty premature though.
And it's why comments from podcasters like me, when I'm like, take a gap year, play the young kids, is also stupid. And again, I know there's a lot of people listening to this that do think the young guys should get more run. And I still am kind of one of those people. But you mentioned the success that this organization has had since Ant got here. I mean, call a spade a spade. A lot of that credit is because Ant is so good. Chris Finch has done a lot, I think, to develop some of the foundational players of this team, and whoever was running the roster at the time put some good pieces in place. But at the end of the day, like, you got a top 5, top 7 guy that you can't win a title without. He should get a majority of the credit in the praise pie. So this is also why the Kevin Durant rumors come up in the summer, in my opinion. This is why the Giannis rumors come up at the deadline, where I think Tim Conley knows, and the ownership group and whoever's run the show, like, you have to continue to give Ant the most weapons, assets, tools he can to try to win, because that is your best way to keep him. I mean, again, if this thing were to ever spiral into a next year they're 30 and 52, they're probably getting a new coach. How does that affect the team? And then also, too, that's when it immediately opens up from just rumors to, like, not just smoke, there's real fire. So it's a burden on this organization to win games. And I think that's why we get a little pissy sometimes, myself included, of you just lost to the Nets. Like, you got to win games. You got to give yourself the best chance come playoff time. And it feels a little mounted. It feels a little pressured. That's not what I was used to coming in covering this team. Like, you're just like, hey, man, can we just get to Valentine's Day and then we'll start looking at tankathons? So I don't think it'll go away, though. I do think as he enters his prime, and maybe he does, I know there's a lot of face of the league talk this last week that you probably skipped out on. But if he becomes the face of the league and he's not sniffing finals or, real competitive Western Conference finals, it's only going to get louder. So I would just kind of brace yourself. But I'm also with you of, there has been no indication publicly or even privately that he doesn't love, where he's at.
Yeah, I just think premature is the word. Not wrong to cross your mind. I just think we're at a pretty premature stage here where numerous years left on his current deal, is going to be able to sign his next contract with the Wolves for like over $400 million. I mean, like $80 million in average annual value is like,
that spreadsheet's going to be fucked up.
Exactly.
And we said this before, but he had an opportunity to leave if he really wanted to already once. Like, when you get to that rookie extension level, like, you can be the first of your kind to I'm going to bet on myself and become a free agent. And he signed a big extension. And like you just said, now he's got another. That's crazy. When we start getting to guys averaging $1 million per game, and then they only play 60, then season tickets go up 400%. That's going to be a conversation, but I'm sure Adam Silver will fix it.
Also switched agencies. I think that's leaving Clutch before the new contract that he's on right now, his first max contract that he signed two summers ago. He switched to WME, and that's, if you're a Minnesota Timberwolves fan, that's one of the best things that ever happened to the Minnesota Timberwolves, low-key, is there would have been more of a push. There was more of a push to at least keep options open sooner than there has been with WME to my understanding.
Rich
Anything
Paul
else
was calling him the best player in the league again this year.
Yeah. He says, come back, buddy. Right, for real.
Come back.
You want to talk about the bench a little bit? And
do you want to talk about Rudy first? I thought that was just kind of a sizable moment in time. When I went to bed last night, I thought the Rudy Gobert flagrant, which now it was a elbow to Derek Lively's doppelganger. I thought it was Derek Lively the first half, so that's on me. But he elbows who in the face? I'm sorry, Marvin Bagley. Gets upgraded
basically
to
the same player.
Yeah, pretty much. He gets upgraded to a flagrant one, and now he's suspended, likely, right, for this game coming up on Sunday against the Sixers, Rudy Gobert, because he's collected a lot of flagrant points. I thought that happened in the third quarter, and I thought that's why the vibe kind of shifted. And you mentioned the vibe. We could talk about that. It happened in the second quarter. I still think it kind of messed up the game, but it's just a bummer. That's my analysis. It's just a bummer because Rudy Gobert last night, 22 points, 17 rebounds, 9 of 11 from the field. 50% from the free throw line. I guess that's all we can do. 10 offensive rebounds. Like, he was awesome. But to the same conversations we used to have with Ant about, hey, man, stop getting technicals. It's just stupid. Like, you're the best player. The team needs you. I think that, I don't think Rudy Gobert can be in the locker room one game and be like, everyone needs to be held accountable and stuff. And then like, hey, man, can you stop doing dumb shit? Because it's dumb shit. It's not... The elbow last night, I mean, you're going to get banged around as a big guy, and they're going to cheap shot you a lot. I know you get hit in the head a lot, but to now miss a game, albeit, we'll see if Embiid plays, but like, you can't talk about how important these final stretch run is and all this stuff, and everyone needs to be held accountable, and the coach should bench guys, and then you're out there literally pulling yourself out of future games because of some of your actions. So it was kind of a sour note on what I thought was a really, really, they needed those 10 offensive rebounds last night. They needed those 17 rebounds total. So it's just something he's got to clean up because I just think we're kind of past that.
Yeah, I do think I'm glad you're associating it with the offensive rebounds because I think it is part and parcel to that. Like Rudy Gobert and the way he is attacking the offensive glass now, even compared to 2-3 seasons ago, is very different. Like he is an offensive rebounding attacker. And it's, he's significantly more marginalized in the Wolves offense than he was in the Utah offense, right? It's not a spread pick and roll team. Rudy functions as a role player in the Wolves offense where he was the key piece to the Utah offense from his screening and just playing pick and roll game as they did there as much as they did. And I think it's a really cool adaptation from him of like, okay, I can't help offensively in the ways that I used to in Utah. Like how we say the term screen assists a lot less than Utah people were saying it back in the day because it's not as impactful of a piece of Rudy's game. Still a really good screener. They just don't play that style as much. And he has repurposed that by becoming an elite offensive rebounder. And I would just recommend to people to just for like a, middle of a boring third quarter or whatever, just watch Rudy for like 4 or 5 possessions in a row. And it reminds me of like a nose tackle in football where you are just barreling into this wall over and over again. And sometimes through traffic, you're going to be able to, get an offensive rebound or get to the running back or the quarterback in the backfield. But it's a lot of like crashing. It's extremely physical. And it's where he gets popped in the head a lot. And, he reacts that he's very, call it what it is. Like he's very sensitive to getting hit in the head. He gets hit in the head a lot. But that gets him agitated to the point where he responds back with physicality. And just the reality of the situation is they need him to offensive rebound extremely physically as he does. And they need him to do that without getting emotional about it. And I do have some like empathy for that because he's getting clobbered over and over again. But he's also signing up for that by being a crasher every single time. Yeah. So I don't know. It's like, this is the role. Like, this is your role on offense on this team. You need to be able to do it without getting suspended. And that's just is what it is.
I just plain and simple don't think we can criticize Julius Randle for bad body language or vibes or moodiness or Ant for getting too heated and then not, hold everyone accountable, which is something Rudy Gobert has really wanted. Second in the league this season in total offensive rebounds, only behind Donovan Clingan, who that'll be a fun matchup. Rudy will be well rested for that game coming up in Portland next week because Clingan has become just a really, really awesome center. But yeah, it was a bummer because I don't think if he gets that flagrant foul last night, I'm sure we probably still talk about the dude who dropped 40 and was really clutch. But I think we would have then pivoted quickly to the guy who had 22 and 17. And the offensive rebounding thing is a new weapon for them. And again, I don't know, to your point about nose tackle and stuff like, yeah, dude, you sign up for this, but it's also like, it's not like he's doing 17 rebounds last night and getting 1 touch. He had 22 points. Like and some of that's because he's working his ass off to get the ball himself because he's not always getting it. But again, it's just, if you ask Rudy Gobert in a certain moment when they lose a game and it's like, all I want to do is win, that's the only thing left on my resume is winning. I just think that kind of then flies in the face of some of these actions where, again, I know you're getting beat up on, and I know the team behind the scenes is constantly sending film to the league office and being like, hey, like, look at this. He gets ripped on online more than I think any other player. And I think he gets kind of cheap shot a little bit more on the court than a lot of guys. But at some point, you just have to grow out of it. And you just have to be like, what matters is me being on the court to help my team win. Because now, again, if Embiid does play in this next game, Wolves Sixers, like, that's a different matchup now, throwing Julius or Nas or even, I guess, some Berenger minutes at it. That's just different. And you can't afford to be losing any of these games because of silly or inappropriate actions.
No, you're talking about accountability, right? As Rudy is too, and, buried in those Rudy comments about accountability a couple weeks ago was him saying like, if I'm not putting in the effort, bench me. Like that was a direct quote from him too in there, so it's, he believes that this team needs more accountability. And I think anybody who watches it is like, yeah, like it varies. It does. But you're right to bring up that Rudy needs accountability too. And this is his area where he needs to be held accountable, because we're going to give him the pass on inability to catch, because that's just like, that's not like a choice. That's just
Right.
That's just like the caliber of his hands. We got to deal with the free throw stuff, to some extent, because he's not a shooter. I mean, it's weird. I want to talk about that in a second here too. But the things I believe, like the things that we as humans should be held accountable for, are the things that we can't have the ability to control, and emotionality is one of those things that Rudy needs to be held accountable for. Julius needs to be held accountable for. Ant needs to be, on down the line. It's being accountable is part of success. So I'm glad that you pushed that button there too. While I was more like, I get it. I think it's both, right? Like he's in a tough spot,
Yeah.
but like, stop, like that's just what it is, what it is. I did want to, before I move on from Rudy, he changed his free throw mechanics. And you said last night, shot 4 for 8 again from the free throw line. 50% is what he's shooting from the line on the year. But I do think it's, I remember Cat changed his free throw mechanics maybe 4 years ago, something like that. And it made a difference. Like if Rudy gets back to shooting 65% from the free throw line for the rest of the season, one, that would be a big deal. And two, I think we will be able to attribute it to his free throw mechanics changing. And the change is he's not dribbling the ball anymore. It's just he is catching it and shooting it there. I asked Rudy about that in the locker room after the game.
Rudy, took the dribble out of your free throw mechanics. You feel more comfortable with that?
Yeah, way more comfortable. I feel like the overthinking gets me more than the actual skill of shooting the ball. I shoot more than 90% in practice, and it's really, I think it eliminates a lot of the overthinking.
The dribble?
Not dribbling eliminates a lot of that. So it's now just about shooting the ball and not getting down.
So again, like I'm not crowning him, but because he's still, was 4 for 8 from the line, and he had airballed another one last night. But I don't know, when it's been as bad as it has out of nowhere, like I do think we got to at least note where there's changes. What do you got?
And not to nitpick you, but just because I would say he changed his routine, right? Not so much his mechanics.
That's fair. Yep.
Just because, again, like
that's a good way.
That was the first time I've actually heard that, by the way. So I had no idea that happened. I was thinking, like, is he shooting left-handed, or is he doing like a granny
Underhand?
shot?
Yeah,
No, I think that is. I mean, you talk to anyone at any level, coaching high school all the way up, like that is one pretty simple thing to do, is just to change your routine. Guys put one foot in front of the other, take a different 3 dribbles, 2 dribbles. I think for him, I mean, this kind of goes back to what just happened with the elbow and the flagrant foul. I think he is so in his head, or he's so online on the court mentally, that he's always thinking about things. I think sometimes that affects his inability to catch. Where he's like, okay, I want the ball. And then he gets all hyped up and then it slides through his fingers. So I think him eliminating that over the break, I mean, that does kind of confirm, right, that we're not the only 2 people talking about his free throw rate. I would imagine even whatever beach he was on, he was getting texts like, hey, when you get back here to the gym, stop dribbling the basketball. And I think Rudy not dribbling is just good for everyone involved. Especially if he gets a poke check, like, hey, just never dribble. But that's a big component, as we talked about a week or 2 ago.
Yeah,
he has to be on the court because this offensive rebounding thing now, I mean, he's up there with the best of the best in the league. That's how you get extra possessions. If your defense is good, I mean, that's just kind of a cheat code to have more shots while also preventing more baskets with him on the court. But teams are just going to foul the shit out of him if he's shooting 40%. They're just going to use up fouls. They're going to have guys sub in and take some cheap shots and try to get them messed up. So if he can make them pay at more than 1 point per possession at the free throw line, that's huge. So 50% last night, but I think that's one of the 3 things that I'm going to watch now for the final 25 games. It's like, I'm literally going to watch him at the free throw line, because I'm pretty sure I would turn my head and look at my phone when he got to the charity stripe, because I was like, I know how this is going to go. That's a big thing, and I'm glad he kind of owned up to it and was like, hey, I had to do something different because I was not. I mean, he was shooting a career low since his rookie season.
You've played the game with us on Media Row before, where when a guy
Derek
goes to the free throw lines, yeah.
Shout out to Andy.
Yeah. Andy invented Derek, which is going 1 for 2 from the line, which is a Derek Williams thing. I invented Culver, which is going 0 for 2 from the line. And a Curry is making both of your free throws at the line, and we all just kind of guess whenever a guy gets to the line. We have added a new one, which is a Gobert, which is
an air ball.
It doesn't matter what happens on either of the other 2 free throws, but one of the free throws is airballed. We have changed that to a Gobert. And we have a Conley. Conley is 3 for 3 from the line after a 3 because of the game and the Lakers game, the playing game.
Oh yeah, that was
yeah.
He didn't play last night. That might be the best segue into the bench.
Today's show is brought to you by Quince, Quince. And Quince is a clothing line that puts out everyday clothes that last. They sent me a quarter zip jacket, and it was one of those items of clothing where you kind of pick it up and you feel the quality when you hold it. There's like a weight to it. It feels like it's made out of premium materials, and that's because it is. That's what Quince does best. Premium materials, thoughtful design, and everyday staples that feel easy to wear and easy to rely on, even as the weather shifts. Quince has the everyday essentials with quality that lasts. Organic cotton sweaters, polos for every occasion, lighter jackets that keep you warm in changing seasons. The list goes on. And Quince is a company that works directly with top factories, so they cut out the middleman, so you're not paying for that brand markup, just quality clothing. Refresh your wardrobe with Quince. Go to quince.com/DaneMoore for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/DaneMoore. Free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/DaneMoore. Let's do it. I mean, I loved the bench in the first quarter. Loved it. And they actually kind of lost those minutes, but it was how it felt to me when Nas comes in and he brings that normal spark that he always does if the ball just starts moving faster, like side to side in the half court, right? He's as good as anybody on this team or really in the league of having that like 0.5 mentality of like, I got it, I'm shooting it, or I got it, I'm moving it. So he always injects that in there. And then Bones and Io come in and it injects pace in, the full court to the Wolves offense, while Nas is sort of out there. He can play with pace too, obviously, the huge dunk in transition last night. But I really liked that connection in particular of like, okay, the style of play changes when Nas comes in and he subs in for Rudy or Julius, right? Both Rudy and Julius are much more static players. But I like that snowball, right? Of like, now they start running and they start moving. And frankly, it looks like the style of play that whenever people are like, what the fuck is flow offense? Like watch that.
The starting five sometimes.
Yeah, that's what Finch wants,
Yeah.
I just found that to be really encouraging. It was like something I could picture, being a weapon. Obviously, that group is going to be in at the end of first quarters, beginning of second quarters, end of third quarters, beginning of fourth quarters, when you're playing against, the opposing star isn't out there, right? That's when Jokic rests, Shea rests, whatever. Is the first time where I was like, oh, maybe this is a little bit of a weapon again, like it always was last year when you had Nas, Dante, and Nikhil coming off the bench. I found that piece really encouraging, and we can also talk about who was all. Baron J played there too, and who didn't play, but that was the thing that stood out to me. Was I like the feel of the literal flow of the offense, but the flow of the rotation as well.
Yeah, numbers aside, one game since the break is the same thing I wrote in my notes that felt, using your term from last night, vibes. That felt like the first time the bench had the vibe of last year's 8 starters.
Yep.
And production wise, it could get wonky. Let's put a pin in that as well over the next 10 games and see if, the bench to me right now is obviously Bones, Io, and Nas. No Mike Conley last night. No Terrence Shannon Jr., who was healthy. So that was an interesting wrinkle that we can maybe talk about. And then 4 just need a cold shower after watching it minutes of Berenger. But that's probably your 8-man rotation for the most part. And to expect that in April and May, I just thought they came in last night, put a ton of pace into the game. It's fun to watch. I was concerned about the Bones minutes of like if they would exist now that Io's in the mix. And I think those two kind of play off of each other in a weird, dumbed down way of kind of how Ant and Dante can sometimes. And then you have Nas out there who, I mean, should wake up this morning as the 6th man of the year front runner. So it felt like last year again. And then we can still talk about the bench, but your question at the top and the Ant clutch stuff, it's like, if they can find that bench magic with these 3 kind of hockey subs coming in on top of the fact that they have a better version of Ant and maybe Julius and Rudy on the glass and Jaden and stuff, it does make you start to think like, okay, if the bench can continue to do this over the final couple months, maybe they are a really better team than they were last year, despite losing a really important piece in Nikhil.
Yeah, it just hammered home the idea to me that this team just did not have depth. Like pre-All-Star break, and we were wrong about deep team and all that. I mean, we both were, but it just like the reality of the situation.
The listeners, because I said 6.5 good players, and we're going to keep talking about the
recently.
I said
at the beginning of the year, you were a pretty big TJ guy, and so was I.
Were you shocked he didn't play? Just in the
I kind of was. I was curious. I mean, that's what I went into it. I could tell from the rotation in the first quarter, and Ant subbed out earlier and just kind of how they were doing it. I could tell a 9th guy was going to be in the rotation. Obviously I was a little surprised that it was Johan, who was that 9th guy who got the opportunity, because obviously, Mike Conley before he was traded was in the rotation 90% of games. I mean, how many games did he DMP? 3 but pre-deadline? That wasn't for rest. Terrence Shannon Jr. had played in every game he'd been healthy for this season. I know this was technically his first game back healthy since the most recent injury, but I was like, I think when we were talking about it on Media Row, like I was like, if I had to pick, I think it might be TJ who was going to play it, and maybe that'll be a night to night thing where it's Johan in some matchups, like against a bigger Dallas team, that you go with that, and maybe against a smaller team you go TJ, or you go Mike, or even Jalen Clark. Like, he didn't play at all. He's been in the rotation pretty much all season too. And these were guys who weren't consistently producing in that 7th, 8th man role. Jalen Clark, Terrence Shannon Jr., Mike, obviously Rob Dillingham when he was here. And I just think, I asked Mitch about it before the game, and he was like, it just is going to settle TJ into, more of a better role for him. And I think he was like 8th, 9th, 10th type man in this team. And we and they probably got a little over their skis on what TJ was going to be. I mean, definitely did. Yeah. What TJ was going to be this season. Right. But I don't think this is them having given up on him. And if I had to guess, I think he'll be the 9th man at times when it doesn't make as much sense to play Berenger, because we're going to keep running into this wall with Berenger. They did last night. Like, it's the same shit, dude. It's like, if you're not going to play Nas at the 3, they're not going to play Johan more, and Nas had a huge game last night, right? He even closed the game. So there's just,
which is pretty noteworthy. I mean,
that's pretty noteworthy.
That game, like I should have mentioned that earlier. Like, he closed with Chris Finch closed with hot hand last night. Nas Reed over Julius. And now we're kind of just firing bullets from all over the corner. But it is weird, the TJ thing, because I thought he would play, because you were always the one that's like, when he's healthy, they put him out there because they are so big on him. One game, let's stretch this out over 2 weeks and see what happens. But to me, it kind of feels like Bones has done enough to kind of like, he's ahead of TJ in the pecking order right now. Sure. Yeah. And I just think that's something that if we would have talked about 2-3 months ago, would have been like, that's not crazy. That's impossible. Like, that won't happen. And I don't know if their bench is going to be TJ, Io, Nas, and Bones. That's just like a lot of guards, especially if you kind of want to plug Nas in at the 3 more. I think it's going to be the trio of Nas, Io, and Bones, and then maybe Johan gets in a couple minutes. But I wouldn't be surprised if TJ just keeps catching some DNPs for a couple nights. Sure. Maybe a night where Ant's in foul trouble, they switch it up. But unfortunately for him, I think the injury set him back a little bit. I don't think Jalen Clark's ever going to get in again. No offense
Right.
to him, but
I'm just saying he was in before.
right. I just think it's an 8-man. Finch loves that, and then maybe you sprinkle in the Baron J minutes. But last night, again, despite me being pro Chris Finch and being, hey, you actually closed with the guys I think you should have closed with, not getting a second stint of the Baron J stuff in the second half. I think he handles that better, Baron J, than maybe like a Rob did or a Terrence did or whatever, because he just looks so happy like a young puppy to be out there. But those 4 minutes were so good that it does kind of, you can be frustrated with the coaching staff. Like you couldn't get another 4 minutes in that third quarter or something because
okay, would you rather have him play 4 minutes in that quarter over not 4 minutes of Nas?
No, I haven't thought this one through it. I'm just talking it out.
And I know, and other people will say, well, no, play him over, somebody who isn't playing this well. There is a complication in the fact that Yohan is a 5, purely a 5,
right?
Which means he can never play when Rudy's out there. I mean, it would, and Julius did play less last night.
29 minutes.
Yeah, it was 14 in the first half. Julius played 14 minutes in the first half when Yohan got 4. And I'm sure many people would be like, well, just don't play Julius 35 minutes a night. That's just not going to happen. Like Julius is not going to settle into a 26, 28 minute a game role as this roster is currently constructed, and which comes back to our conversation we were having last week, where it's like, that's why I don't think one of Nasri, Julius Randle, or Rudy Gobert are going to be on this team next year. Because I do think the 19-year-old French kid is going to absolutely be in the rotation. And if they're not going to commit to Nas really moving to a wing, then one of them has to go. And that's just gonna keep coming up when he has these little stints where he has the opportunity to play and show out the way he did with the dunk and the blocks and just the effort that he brought or brings. But I don't think a change of him becoming a real permanent part of this rotation can happen unless Finch makes a significant change to how the front court is used, which would be fairly significantly dropping Rudy's minutes, fairly significantly dropping Julius's minutes, or moving Nas to 3. Those are all significant things to do, and they're prerequisites to Yohan playing double-digit minutes consistently on this team. So we'll see. Again, it's why I think personally I'm leaving it open that I don't think he's going to play every single night, and it might be a rotating 9th man. But loved what I saw in those minutes. And what really stood out to me outside of the blocks and the dunk and the way he moves was how much his teammates understood his game. Do you catch that? Like it wasn't just like this rant. It happens sometimes when somebody deep on the bench who just hasn't played with the starters like ever, gets into the game because somebody's injured or foul trouble or whatever. And that guy is just kind of feels like the odd man out there. And Ant's kind of like, what do you do again here? There's none of that. Like, I feel like this group very much knows what Yohan's game is and wants to empower it. I think you saw that on the offensive end. I think you saw it in how happy they were with what he was doing defensively. And that piece is a really big deal to me, because I know what I'm hearing about what he's doing in practice and how he's progressing over the course of the season. And we don't get to go and be there for the actual practices, but we're there afterwards when the guys are doing the individual work. And Thursday we had a media availability when all the guys got back, and it's when Ant was pulling Rudy on the sled and all that. So we were there for a long time because it was a long practice, and we were waiting to talk to Mike. And I'm there, we're just hanging out for like 45 minutes, and I just watched Yohan doing his individual work, and what they are now having him work on in his individual drills is like a very major evolution to what was happening, what they were working on with him in individual drills back in the fall and in training camp. I mean, it was a very basic platter earlier on, as understandably, he's extremely young, hasn't been playing basketball for a long time, but it was cool, man. It was like, he was looking like a basketball player. He's taking shots within, like, making moves to get to a shot not just doing Rudy Gobert offense. Like, and that's to me, that's a significant thing. And I think it's representative, or it's an anecdote that I've seen with my own eyes of growth. And I hear what they're talking about from the growth, and I see what the respect that his teammates have. And I think it's fair to say that this kid has really improved this season, despite not having played very much. And maybe that's the reason that they find a way to jam him into the rotation here for the rest of the season, because it's just a fact that he's a lot better than he was in November, I'm very curious to see what that is, because I could see him helping in a playoff series, even in a bit role, if that is what his skill set is what you needed in a playoff series. So very encouraging, but obviously it's only 4 minutes.
My favorite podcaster saying that a young player got better without getting force-fed minutes kind of struck me there. I just need a second to handle that. Sounds like you can develop behind the scenes. You don't just have to be given minutes, a la Make-A-Wish situation. It's funny you bring that up, because someone who does attend these practices knows a mutual friend of ours knows I have a dog. And I remember the Portland game, because it was the opening night, right? Wolves opened up out here in October, and we watched Baron J warm up with Kevin Hansen. And this person who went to practice this week was like, we just wanted Baron J to sit. That's all we wanted him to do, was like, can you sit? And he goes, we've been starting to teach him now to get a beer out of the fridge. I was like, oh, wow, that's like Murphy cannot do that. So I think that's a huge thing to your earlier point of who's on the roster next year. That's not a conversation we're trying to have now, but Baron J is just going to force them to make a move, because I think his development, what he's doing, the blocks last night were cool, right? Like, it reminds you of the 2 blocks he had in the first possession in Summer League. I think the coolest skill is how he just sprints in transition, because he just had a block, or he had a never mind, or he forced a tough shot last night, and then he gets out and like leads the break, and Jaden finds him on that alley-oop. But the coolest moment, you are right, was his teammates seemed to be like, I think it was Naz Reid who got caught in the air and tried to find Baron J and threw out of bounds. And you don't see this from guys who make $100 million compared to a rookie who has to wear the Dora or the Explorer backpack. Nas like reached out to everyone that could see him, like, hey, that was my fault. Like, don't put that on Johan. Like, coaching staff, like, don't mark that on him. Like, I gave him kind of a weird grenade that went out of bounds. And that tells you that behind the scenes, like, they're starting to really trust this 19-year-old.
I think so, man.
Depending on what happens with Rudy, again, like the flagrant foul stuff, or just the inability to be a free throw, respectable at the free throw line come playoff time, I wouldn't rule out Baron J having a role in the playoffs. I don't think he's going to be a guaranteed rotation guy, but that's big, right? Because what was the answer last year? Like, if Rudy was, you just had to play small, I guess, and that was it. So I don't know if he can get you a beer yet, though. Like, I do think if teams have the ability to scout him a little bit, there's a lot of refinement that Johan needs at 19. But the fact that he can do a lot more than just jump high, like, he knows now a little bit more. He looks bigger, by the way. I'm sure you see him every day at practice. He looks like a completely different specimen that he did in Las Vegas last July.
Absolutely. Yeah. Freshman 15, but in a good way. Let's wrap this up with is this team better than last season's team? I thought of doing this just because Finch was asked a question about it. I thought this answer was interesting. I'll play the clip and we can talk about it.
3 games ahead of the pace that you were at last year, the All-Star break, and you're top 10 in offense and defense. Is this team better?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think when you sit back and look at it, we've got pretty high internal expectations. I think if you took the temperature of the team internally, we'd probably be a little disappointed with where we are. We maybe a little bit feel like we should be a little bit even further ahead. We haven't been able to capitalize on our young depth off the bench that we thought we would in the beginning of the season, but now we feel like we got bench strength, and we've been relatively healthy. We've just been inconsistent with our defense at times. That's hurt us, the West is even more competitive. Every year gets way more competitive, but ultimately, coming into the break, we won 7 out of 10. It didn't necessarily feel that way. I'm not going to lie to you, but we feel are confident in our ability to put a run together through these last 26 games and into the playoffs. So I don't know if we're better. We'll measure at the end of the season. But we know who we need to be when we're a good team, and sometimes we deviate from that.
What did you make of that, Kyle?
I hadn't really thought of it, I guess. I just wasn't at the level yet where I was like, is this team better than last year? I think my initial gut reaction before the game and after the game would have still been no. But then as we kind of talked it out and talked about the Ant clutch stuff and maybe them getting that magic off the bench again of like the 8 starters aura, I'm starting to, I can talk myself into it, but I don't know if I'm there yet. I mean, I think Ant has taken a leap. Obviously, Jaden has taken a leap. I just don't know if I'm there. I don't know if the defense is as maybe, not that the defense was all world last year, but I think there's just something missing a little bit. And maybe that's because I'm so hyper-focused on what took place in that third quarter last night or that second half where they still kind of just played with their food against a team that had really no interest in winning the game. But I think there's a valid case to be made that this team has, whether or not they're better right now. I mean, again, shout out to Alan Horton, but last year they went 15-8 after the break, and the season before that 11-10, 18-8. Okay, yeah. So they have a high bar here to kind of get back, but they're a game out of the 3 seeds. So if they are better than last year's team and they can string together, a 65%, 70% winning percentage to get to where you and I were saying, like they need to be a top 4 team, they need to maybe be that 3 seed. But I don't know. I'm not really there yet fully because I still think there's some holes that last year's team didn't fix. So I don't know how I can make them bona fide better than last year.
But if they're holes that this team didn't fix, they were holes that were on the team last season.
For sure.
You know what I'm saying?
I think I just focus on Nikhil. I still think that part, I need to see more from Io. I need to see more from who that 8th guy is. The Bones thing has been great, but I'm
just going devil's advocate here on that. Like, and I brought up the Nikhil thing too, but like, how much better is Dante this year than last year? Right? Like the Julius experience, even though it's rocky, has been better this year than last season. At least there's been, I think, more regular season highs than there were a year ago. I mean, it's not like we haven't talked about, is this team better than last year? I mean, how many times have we they were 8th on offense last year, 8th, like we measure those sort of things often, but I thought I like the way that Finch just kind of like described it all. He was like, oh yeah, and the defense and consistency. It was just like talking about more like basketball and not through the numbers. And like sometimes I think when we're comparing and contrasting things, we just like fall so much, or I do, so much into like what were the numbers then and what are the numbers now. And sometimes numbers aren't indicative of a feel or a belief or a ceiling, right? And when I was thinking about this, not explicitly looking at, well, the defense is worse than last season or anything, I just kept coming back to Ant. And this is both positive and negative, but ultimately leads to why I think this team is kind of significantly more of a threat than it was a year ago. One, the clutch stuff, which we did the first 25 minutes on. His understanding in those spots has massively evolved. The numbers have massively evolved. You just feel good with the ball in Anthony Edwards' hands at the end of games now. That's a different feeling than it has even last season, I think. The other significant difference I think that is really tied to this team's ceiling is that Ant is having a really bad defensive season from a regular season standpoint. I looked it up during the middle of the game at one point, and I was like, I wonder if like the team numbers with Naz Reid on the floor are better or worse when he's out there with Ant. And when Naz is on the floor and Ant is off the floor, the Wolves have been far more successful this season. The defense is significantly better in those minutes, and I think that's representative down the line. We've talked about some of that stuff of when Ant is in a group, the defense really drops, and that's because Ant's not having a good defensive season. Ant can be a good defensive player. It is a good defensive player when clicked into it, and I have some concerns about if you haven't really been playing defense and now you got to turn it on for 20 games over the course of a few weeks in the playoffs. You want, can you really hit that gear while still putting forth as much effort offensively? I think he's going to be a lot better of a defensive player in the playoffs. I don't really love that in players who flip the switch on that side of the floor in the playoffs. But Ant's going to be better on defense, right? In the playoffs, and I really think that would make a significant difference for this team when we talk about ceiling and when we talk about this team's identity being defense. Like, this team can have the defensive identity that it had a few years ago. Now, I think it can if you get Ant playing defense like he did a few years ago. He's not going to do that in the regular season. He's probably never going to do it in the regular season again for the rest of his career. That's just part of the superstar thing. But the dude has the ability to play high-level defense and to be more locked in off ball. And if he does that in the playoffs, this team has a level that is higher than it's been operating at this season for sure. And the team already just more wins thus far this season, better numbers offensively, defensively this season than last season. Like, I think they're playing about as good as they played last year during the regular season. I think a huge change is that Ant's defense has dropped. I think it'll get better in the playoffs. I think Ant's clutch time offense has gotten a lot better. And I think that will largely sustain in the playoffs as well. So I think it's as simple as I think Ant's going to be a better player this postseason than he was last postseason. And that's not complicated math. Like, that, to me, that's a very obvious arrow going up.
No argument, just my own devil's advocate of, like, if my Nike stock goes up $10 a share, it'll finally be green on Fidelity. Like, his defense has taken a step back this regular season. So I think it's two different conversations again. If you ask Chris Finch, hey, today on February 20th, last night, are you a better team than last year? I think it's really tough to be like, with a bullet, yes. Does this team have a higher ceiling? 100% like than last year. And that's, I think, the argument you just made of individually. I think you've seen more guys in year two, right? Like, last year was also, or, as these guys kind of get away from the Karl-Anthony Towns trade, like, they've seemed more comfortable. Julius has talked about that. Dante's talked about that. Individually, I think all of the core components have leveled up. I mean, even Jaden, right? Like, this has been a career year for Jaden McDaniels. But it's just hard for me to fully buy into it now, saying they're better than last year when there's still the moodiness. We're still 10 days removed from the locker room calling out players and, mood swinging through games. So again, last night, they pull off a win. They win by 11. Everything's fine. But there was a moment in that third quarter where, like, man, this team is vibe-based. And when the vibes are bad, the basketball is worse. I hate
that about this team. I'm just saying last year's team had that too.
Right. And I think what I'm just saying is, like, well, then it's hard, they're both, but the numbers, everything you're saying is right. I think the conversation's worth having because the one piece that you're not mentioning, or that no one, I don't think the West is as good. I firmly don't believe that, because I do watch some of the other games, and I think anyone can be beat. I mean, I know, OKC's hurt a little bit with Shea, and Denver's been banged up, but if this team has a higher ceiling than last year, and I think the West is a little less competitive, or just every team is more gettable, that should breathe life into a team that can be moody and vibey. Like, hey, you might have a better chance than ever to do something that everyone in the locker room says is all they care about, is winning a title. So I think we came at that in different directions, but
sure,
they definitely have a chance to punch through that gentleman's sweep ceiling that they've kind of built for themselves.
Right. No, that's why this is going to be really interesting to track the rest of the season. You got anything else? Final stuff before we go?
I would imagine we're doing another pod maybe next Friday or something. Maybe you and I might start doing some live pods. Will Mike Conley play between now and the next time you and I record?
I'm gonna say no.
Okay. Just a fun little anecdote, just a fun little side bet on Prize Picks.
Well, it could. I don't know. Like, I could see, if there's a foul trouble sort of situation. I don't think he'll be in the baked in rotation soon, but I don't know. My overall guess on this bench and rotation is that that ninth man spot is going to rotate, and I think that makes sense actually based on opponent. Like, if you can pull that off, there are some different skill sets, like even including Jalen Clark. If you need that, I don't know. It makes some sense to me to cycle through some of those guys. So maybe Mike does as well.
And you guys did a good job of talking about the nitty gritty of how Mike got back here. I think the Mike Conley whole transaction and the time off that he had, I just think that whole thing was fascinating because I think about you in Memphis and him being like, I want to keep playing. Like, this isn't my retirement tour. And then for him to voluntarily come back. And again, I know he's expecting his 4th kid and his family has roots here now, but like to come back to a team where there were probably conversations like you might not play. I just think it's fascinating. No other takes there. I just think he would have had opportunities to play. Again, when you look at teams in the West, there are teams where he could have gotten minutes guaranteed. And I don't know if he was guaranteed minutes coming back here. I think it was more of a, hey, we need you to help out a little more in the locker room where, like you and Chris talked about, it got a little moody there without Mike for a while. So just something to keep an eye on. But yeah, I think the team is back to having the depth and now the options of, I don't think Jalen plays. I don't think Mike plays. I don't think Yohan plays. I don't think TJ plays. But they are options now. Right. And I don't think they had that a month ago, or at least could trust those options a month ago.
This is fun, man. I will see you in 3 days in Portland.
Yes.
Looking forward to it. You guys can follow Kyle on Twitter at Kyle Taggy. You can listen to him all the time on here with me as well. Like he said, we're trying to start mixing in some live stuff that we are going to want to test in advance of the playoffs, and we'll keep you in the loop there. But typically, Kyle and I do live shows on Friday, or we do shows on Friday, and we're going to try and make them live. I mean, part of that is just trying to boost up our our YouTube presence, and doing lives and those things help there. But also, Kyle, as we were talking about yesterday, we need to do a better job of asking people to subscribe and like that. That does make a difference. Kyle knows I don't like doing this, but it does make a difference. So if there's a lot of different ways to help us in what we're doing, and the main thing is helping us with our sponsors and stuff like that was what generates revenue, and having more subscribers will help us get out there more and do those sort of things. So youtube.com/DaneMooreNBA. And yeah, we're excited, more so even than that, just excited to do some more things and take advantage of some of the resources that we do have here with the studio and all that to boost the YouTube presence. So yeah, again, if you can like and subscribe there, that would be great. Coming up next on the show will be Monday morning with Jace Frederick, and we'll talk about the Philly game and the latest with this team. And then I will be on the road all week next week in Portland, LA, and Denver, and so we'll be mixing in some shows while I'm on the road there, as well at various locations that hopefully have good internet to be able to do a podcast. Appreciate you doing it, Kyle. Until Monday with Jace, he's Kyle. I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Grinning hard so you can find me in the crowd, yeah. Don't let standards ever bring you down, yeah. Hope you dancing.